It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. On Wednesday, President Biden was in Wisconsin saying, hey, look, Microsoft's going to be building something on that Foxconn site. Remember that Foxconn site that was supposed to bring all these jobs, thousands? I think it was like 13,000. Good paying jobs that were going to transform the region. Remember that? It was going to be the catalyst for an entire, new kind of industry that didn't really happen. Now, Biden did announce the $3.3 billion AI investment by Microsoft at that Foxconn site. And he had some interesting shots to take at Donald Trump, which, look, when you look at the records, there was a lot of words during the Trump years. There were a lot of photo ops. There were a lot of stuff. Let's go with stuff. But the president pointed out Trump promised a $10 billion investment by Foxconn. He came over with your Senator Ron Johnson with a golden shovel, and I remember that, and didn't build a damn thing. They dug a hole with those golden shovels, and then they fell into them. And look, I remember the day with the ceremonial shovel, the ceremonial little boxes of dirt, and the cute little hats. Oh, it was such a great photo op. I will never forget it. But I remember at the time going, Trump's involved in this. Sadly, his record has shown not good on the follow through. Great on the PR. Great on the, I think as the president said, Foxconn turned out to be just that, a con. Go figure. And yeah, go figure. That Donald Trump, not with a great track record on living up to the promise stuff there, especially when you're talking about reshoring manufacturing. So the president was there and announced the big investment, going to bring some technology to the area, going to help build an industry. We'll see where this goes. I'm excited for the area. Now, the reason I think this is important, because there's a lot of this stuff going on. There's a lot of investments. You may remember in 2021, the American Rescue Plan was passed. In 21, the bipartisan infrastructure law was passed. 22, we got the CHIPS and Science Act. 22, we got the Inflation Reduction Act. A lot of major, big, chunky legislation. Lots of moving parts, lots of investments in our country here at home, investments, roads, bridges, all that stuff, pipes, but also reshoring some manufacturing, the CHIPS Act and the Science Act. Hey, how about new technology, the Inflation Reduction Act, some climate change stuff, bringing some new industry, building factories, doing a lot of great stuff we've been talking about on this show for a while. And look, over the summer, we are going to be doing another Working Class Heroes Tour. Going to get out to those places that you may remember. 22, we went to a lot of places that used to be. Well, this summer we're heading to the places that are going to be. These places like this place in Wisconsin where they're building stuff, going to reshore some manufacturing, bring some jobs home, create the future. Now, I bring this up for a reason, because monumental legislation, incredible stuff, massive investment in infrastructure, massive investments in the future, good stuff that Donald Trump, had he the ability to get passed, had he the ability to usher through Congress. And understand, this only happened because Joe Biden has been an insider, understands how to get things done. It's more than just, mean tweets or throwing a temper tantrum or taking a picture. It's about actually getting things done, going through all of the legislative ups and downs and back and all the deals, all that, got it done. Sadly, nobody knows about it. And this is the part, again, blows my mind. The American Rescue Plan, how do you not know? 34% of voters in the Politico Morning Consult poll said they had no idea what you're talking about. American Rescue Plan? Tell them, hey, what got you some money? Maybe they'll know that, but 34%, no idea. 30% had no idea that Biden got the infrastructure law passed. In fact, I would argue most of my red hat friends think Trump did it. He didn't. Talked about it a lot. Every week was infrastructure week. I remember, because I remember all the cute photo ops. If the Trump administration will be remembered for anything in history, it will be for the incredible number of photo ops that turned into absolutely nothing. 44% say that the Chips and Science Act, no idea what you're talking about. And 24% had not heard of the Inflation Reduction Act. And you go, how is that possible? Under which rock do you live under? And now understand, I get it. People are busy. People have lives they have to lead. They've got work. They've got children to raise. They've got family members to take care of. They got the lawn to cut. I get it. But this is a failure of our media. This is a failure of Democrats to have a messaging machine. Now understand, the reason my red hat friends think Trump did so much is because they've got a giant megaphone. They've got an incredible echo chamber that all they got to do is throw something out and it's everywhere. And then the legacy media, the both sides media, they pick up on it. So you're going to hear one of the, Trump had a photo op and people start to think, well, he got something done. And hasn't. But Biden, who's actually done some really good stuff, gotten some major historic kind of legislation passed, people don't know about. Now, what's interesting is the American Rescue Plan, 11% said they've seen, read, or heard a lot about it. 11%. 14% about the infrastructure bill, 9% about the Chips and Science Act, and 17% about the Inflation Reduction Act. That is bad. That is terrible messaging. And understand, we're only, 6 months from Election Day? And the key campaign issues are that Biden's got stuff done. He's the get her done guy. Doesn't say a lot. Doesn't do the evil tweets at 3 o'clock in the morning. Isn't combative. Just goes to work, picks up his jelly bucket, and gets the job done. This legislation is going to rebuild a good portion of our country, going to change our the fact that we actually have something of an industrial policy. Now, is it enough? No. Is it going to fix all of our problems? No, of course not. But it's a step in the right direction. It's moving us in the right direction. Had we a functional Senate and a functional Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, we would have gotten much more out of the infrastructure bill. We would have gotten much better out of what they eventually called the Inflation Reduction Act. When it was Build Back Better, that was better. And this is where we as voting people, we as the folks who go to the polls, have to know this stuff, have to get to be exposed to this stuff. So I'm thrilled to see the president out talking about actually doing something on the site where everyone thinks Trump had a big win. It was an enormous failure. It was an enormous failure, as most of Trump's policies were. Oh, he kept his word. Yeah, he got the tax cut. He got the tax cut. That's right. He did get the tax cut through. Yeah. And it's only going to cost us, $4.6 trillion. Because we now find out that, the cost of extending the 2017 tax cuts, is going to be about $4.6 trillion. And this massive price tag, who got the most bang out of it? Was it you? Wasn't me. We know who it was. It was the rich people, because the rich people got richer. This is why I come back to maybe pay attention to what's actually being done instead of what we're led to believe is being done. A photo op is just a photo op. But I got to tell you, I'm thrilled with the president. We need to do much better messaging on stuff that's getting done. When you've only got 14% of the people saying they know a lot about the infrastructure bill, there's a problem, folks. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break. Right back.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
We are AFGE, the American Federation of Government Employees. We represent 700,000 federal and D.C. government workers who are the vital threads of the fabric of American life. We support our nation's military. We take care of our nation's veterans. We protect our nation's borders. We respond to our nation's crises and natural disasters. We provide services to our nation's seniors. The American Federation of Government Employees. We work for America.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the good news, UAW has just been killing it. I got to tell you, just killing it. The recent news coming out of North Carolina, UAW members down there ratified what they're calling a historic contract at Daimler Truck. This also, North Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, I guess this contract covers a number of places. Nice raise, some ending the two-tier wage system, cost of living adjustments. Really, really good stuff. And here to share some thoughts on this historic agreement, I've asked Corey Hill to come talk with us. Corey's the president of UAW Local 3520 there in Statesville, North Carolina. Corey, thanks for taking time for us.
I appreciate it, Rick. Thank you for what you do and bringing acknowledgement to working class people and what we do as unions out here. Man, it's you guys that blaze the way, give us opportunity to be out here.
Now, I got to tell you, I'm looking at the highlights of this contract. This is, to steal a Bidenism, it's kind of a big freaking deal.
Yeah. It's a big win for our membership. And they're the ones that did it. The strength, the solidarity across the board. As you were saying, it is 6 locals in our council, and we have 4 of them in North Carolina. Then we have 1 in Memphis and 1 in Atlanta. So it was a big win for us. The PDCs in Atlanta and Memphis. We got a good start with that. So we're hoping to go after other PDCs. Get some organizing strength off of that. And, our membership had their demands, and they had them strong, and they stood by them.
And for those of us who don't know what a PDC is, what is it?
Oh, that's the parts delivery program systems there. They deliver all of our parts out to different warehouses and also mostly dealerships. So those are the guys that after we build the trucks, they keep them running. So they're very important to the company and very important to us. Yeah, and
again, it's the whole universe there. And as I understand, the tagline, the slogan here was record profits, record contract. Looks like you did that. I'm looking at this. What was it? A little bit more than a 25% raise is what I was looking at. You got rid of the 2-tier wage system, which is huge, as I understand. What else was involved in this?
Well, Rick, we got rid of two-tier last contract whenever we come in as far as the two-tier system. But what we did in what we felt like was a two-tier system still was the equality difference in our plants, because certain plants was getting paid for certain types of work and where other plants wasn't. So a welder in one plant that built buses wasn't getting paid the same as a welder in a truck plant, but we was doing the same thing, working on vehicles, working on product that's being put out there in the public. So we felt like we needed to do something about that, and we created, what we called as the common grid, and we was able to get fair wages across the board. Where a material handler in a PDC is going to make the same as a material handler in a truck plant. Welders, painters, all those things. We got a lot of equality out of that, and it was a big win for our membership.
Yeah, and it showed in the vote. I mean, you got over 94% of the members voted to ratify this contract. So you must have got a lot of what you were asking for.
Well, they was excited to hear their demands was met by the company. We are Daimler Truck. They're number one in the market. So they didn't treat us like number one. And that was the point. In Class 8s and business class, we led the market as far as Daimler. We produced the trucks, and our people was very clear on they wanted some respect out of this contract because they felt like they haven't gotten that. Lots of other wins out of this contract. We was able to get profit sharing that reflects, our number one in the market. We produce a good product. In that product, they produce plenty of sales. That's the reason why they're number one in Class 8 industry and business class. We got great customers, and we got a great workforce, and they knew what they wanted, and they stood by it.
Now, how much of that do you think is the fact that you had the big win at the UAW with the big three? There's some new energy with the UAW. How much of that played into this, do you think?
It was a huge play into it. But it was also a play into the membership standing strong, and seeing the support that come out of the international, because they was riding that new contract coming off of the big three, which was a record contract, and then coming into Daimler, and they said, they left it up to us, and they laid it on the table and said, hey, if y'all got to deliver. Are you willing to fight for what you're asking for? We knew what the demands were. Job security was a big thing for us because we do have plants in Mexico. And over 15 years, we've seen 7 layoffs at our facilities because of that. And we continue to see this company pit American labor against workers in Mexico. And it's always about truck conversion cost. It's always about where it's producing, never about competition. So it was always an internal fight. So our membership knew what they wanted. They stood strong, and they proved that their strength overcome.
Now, this is another victory that the UAW's had on the backs of what happened in Chattanooga. We'll see what happens in Alabama here coming very soon. There seems to be some momentum to organizing the South, which a lot of people thought wasn't possible. There seems to be some momentum in coming out of the pandemic saying, look, we were essential. We were frontline heroes. Treat us that way. All of that plays into this, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, and Rick, you bring up Tuscaloosa there and Mercedes. If any of the guys is out there watching from down there, Daimler owns y'all too, and we was willing to take on this company. And this company makes a lot of money, and they need to treat their workers the way with dignity they deserve. And I'm proud of you guys down there. If anybody's on there, for y'all standing up, but you're right. There is a lot of momentum in the South, and with the new UAW and some of the movements that we're seeing out of that, they're telling their members, they let us run this campaign, and they gave us all the support, tremendous support, and they said the strength of your membership in this council will win this. And it did. The company knew that we was ready. We did practice strikes. We did pickets. They did chants in the plant, which was unreal. They put up posters everywhere. It was the members that walked in 4, 5, 6 deep into businesses and said, "Hey, we shop here, and we just want to let you know what's going on. We're in negotiation." We didn't hide from it. We didn't hide why we wanted to, why we was asking for what we was asking, and we told our story. That was the thing. It is strength in that, Rick. Unbelievable strength.
No, and the reason I love to hear that you're doing that, because you walk into those small businesses and say, look, I'm fighting for a decent raise because that's your money. That's the money that I'm going to spend here.
Yeah. And we included them. You're in our community. We're fighting for job security when we don't have layoffs in our plants, where your foot traffic, you don't have to worry about if your foot traffic's going to go down. We can secure this contract for 4 more years and bring some stability to y'all. But we wanted them to know, because in North Carolina, we're 2% unionized. And for us to put something together like this, I'm really proud of our membership for holding strong, because we're not in a huge union population. The density here is not here. So you're saying it's a movement in the South? It truly is a movement in the South. And it's the movement by the people. The union's in every location, because if you have a worker there, then you got unions there. The union is the workers. You just got to pull the union out of every location and let those guys say, I'm proud of what I do, and this is what I deserve.
And this is what I earn. Look, at the end of the day, it's one of those things, this company is, like they said, this record profits this company made. They didn't make it just out of the thin blue sky. The workers had to do it. Your members had to do this, and they're rewarded for it. But I'm glad you brought up the 2% union density in North Carolina, because I was going to get there. Because these victories, I hope, are sending a message that solidarity, that people coming together can make lives better. Because growing up in Ohio, from a very young age, I grew up in a housing project in the west side of Cleveland. And from a very young age, the idea of union job, better life was something I saw. When the neighbor got a job at Ford, their lives got better immediately. They had food at the end of the month, better clothes, better opportunities, secondhand car, eventually got out of the projects altogether. So for me, that frame of union job, better life, that plays out. Do you think that message is getting through, especially now with this?
I really do, Rick. I mean, because the new UAW was supportive of letting us tell our story. And excuse me.
No, we most certainly need people to be able to tell those stories and tell them often. I mean, sadly, we don't get enough. Right. We don't get enough people who think that they're special and that their story matters.
Well, like you were saying, this company did not become number one in the market without producing stuff. This company didn't have record profits without the workers, and they needed to experience that. They needed to experience the power to tell the company how they felt. And as a union and as an international, we gave them that opportunity. They won this. They won this campaign. The people that go in there that are truck builders, and that's what I want people in the South to understand. It wasn't all the professionals that won it. The truck builders won it. The bus builders won it. The material handlers won it. The painters won it. The welders won it. They said, look, we're tired of being disrespectful and you're not sharing your profits. We're tired of worrying about our jobs. We're tired of going home and being so wore out we can't play with our kids. We're tired of figuring out how we're going to pay our rent. And you know what? When we started telling our story, we've seen a lot of people in the public come out because they're sitting there saying, I feel the same way.
Me too. No, absolutely. And that's the message. Because you know what the right has masterfully done, what the business community's masterfully done, the Chamber of Commerce, all the national right to work people, what they've done masterfully is they've divorced workers from their unions. It's always the union instead of your union. Ultimately, workplace democracy is about the workers. And if you don't have the solidarity on the shop floor, it doesn't matter what the union at the union headquarters is going to do. It comes down to each individual member. And I'm glad to hear that that's being put front and foremost and that people are feeling that empowerment.
And, you know, Rick, it is our union. It's our union all the way across the whole. And the international is bringing that back, that it's our union. And it's not like two identities. Oh, we got the union, and then you got the international will tell you this or that, or they give you. No, they come in and say, you tell us what those demands want to be, and you know we'll give you the tools that we can do to help do that. And they've done a great job of that.
Outstanding. Last line of questioning I've got for you. You know, clearly Alabama is coming up in the next couple of weeks. The Mercedes plant there, as you've pointed out, it's basically the same company. Are you having conversations with those workers in Alabama? Are you saying, hey, look what we were able to accomplish? And you know, is that having some effect, do you think?
Oh, yeah. So during our negotiations, every time we got an opportunity to be anywhere and be out in public to talk about how our negotiations was going, we always pointed out, we're going to stay strong. We're going to get our demands. We always said, Alabama, we hope y'all are watching because this is the same company that owns you. And so they can relate. They've seen the same struggles that they have down there. And as working people, we just want dignity. We want a middle class back. That's what we want. And the only way we're going to get that is these corporations start sharing their fair share.
Well, or we start demanding that.
Then we'll take it.
Yep. No, that's it. You got to stand up and you got to make your demands. You know, as I've said a million times, the only power that workers have is the ability to fold their arms and march their feet. And sometimes you might have to do that, but fortunately here you didn't. Congratulations on this contract. Good on you, your members. I wish you guys the best, and I look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely, Rick. I appreciate you, man, and thank you for what you do. Keep up the good work.
Thanks so much, Corey. You have a great night. Corey Hill, president of UAW 3520 there in Statesville, North Carolina. I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think this is going to be that wildfire we've been talking about? That once people start to figure it out, that what they've been force-fed over the last 20, 30, 50 years ain't so? That maybe it becomes something they want? We will see. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Quick break, right back.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
Gotta tell you, it's good to hear Corey tell the story that people are getting it down south. Because look, you know, what I've been saying for a very long time is once we get past the right-wing divisions, the corporatist rhetoric, once we get past that divisiveness and understand that unions are about workers and it's about workers being empowered. And I've talked about this for years, that the thing that the employment class, that the wealth class, that the powers to be really are afraid of are empowered citizens. You know, workers who have economic resources to be able to take a day off and feel empowered to make change. I look at my grandparents' generation when they came back from World War II. They were empowered. They won a massive victory against fascism, and they came home, and in the same kind of fashion, they fought economic fascism here at home. They fought for economic freedom. They fought for liberty. And they won and built the most prosperous working class in the history of humanity. And I'm looking at what's going on down south, and there's something. Don't know yet if it's going to fully materialize into the wildfire that I hope it does. But coming out of the pandemic, You talk to people and they're frustrated, they're angry, prices are too high, their wages haven't kept up. There's all of this angst. And it's going to be a moment when they wake up and realize that the way forward is what we've been saying here for years. The way forward, the way to reunite this country is to reunionize this country, to fight for better wages, hours, conditions in the workplace, better opportunities in the workplace, bringing people together in the workplace and solving real problems. And, oh, by the way, talking to each other. See, because right now we don't spend enough time really talking and being involved in each other's lives. You start getting together and going to some of these meetings and saying, hey, I'd like health care. Yeah, I'd like a pension. That changes the dynamic, and that scares the you-know-what out of the wealth class. So the fact that, Corey went through and said, look, we're going to small business owners. And we're explaining, hey, we're fighting for these decent wages because this company's really profitable and we make them this profit. It should filter down. It should trickle down to us. And as I said, oh, by the way, those wage increases that we're getting, some of that's your money. That's the money we're going to come into this shop and spend. That's some of the money we're going to come into your restaurant and spend. Once that disposable income goes away, Main Street goes away. And this is where understanding the interconnectedness of workers and small businesses and the local economy is so vitally important. So when we talk about things like prevailing wage, it's about ensuring that workers make a good wage and that it does filter down and reverberate through an economy. And I'm thrilled to hear that these guys and these folks went out and did this work, preparing for a strike, obviously, but did this work of laying the groundwork just in case. It's that kind of community involvement that is going to be necessary if this is really going to spread into a wildfire. Because what you need people who they're never going to be in a union. They either have jobs that can't be organized, or they're small business people, or whatever. But you need those people on your side. They need to understand that you having good wages and good benefits and good opportunities and a say in seniority and job security, that's stability. That's good for not just you, but for the community, for them. And I don't know that we've done a good enough job as a society or as a labor movement of pitching that. So to hear him say that's where they're going, I'm pretty happy. I think it's gonna be an interesting couple of weeks, especially as the Mercedes votes, workers down in Alabama vote here. I think it's May 25th, if I'm not mistaken. Clearly, we will have folks on to talk about that and get some up-to-dates as well. But we'll see. We'll see where it goes. And, off air, I had the opportunity to talk to Corey for a minute before he moved on. And he said, look, there's some organizing stuff going on we'd like to come back and talk about. So when that happens, we will most certainly have Corey back on the show. Now, I don't know if you've been noticing, paying attention. We got a little lull for a bit on the recession's coming. The recession is coming. The recession is coming. For a while, that was really the drumbeat that we got from the right wing. It was what the business media was throwing out. There's recession coming. There's no soft landing. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's back. It's back. One publication said the U.S. may already be in recession as job cuts accelerate. Another one said stocks bull run will end in bubble or recession, says Bank of America strategist. Another one, economic slowdown finally here. Welcome it. So recession's good. Welcome. Open arms. Love that. The U.S. economy is headed for a hard landing, and the Fed rate cuts won't be enough to rescue it, says Citibank. And on and on. In fact, one guy, this Gary Schilling, Gary has said that the U.S. is going to see a recession by the end of the year, could spark a 30% drop in the stock market, or what he calls a violent correction. Yeah, it's coming. And the thing that bothers me is we keep talking about recessions coming. The recession's around the corner. A recession will eventually come. And I guess if you are on this train long enough, eventually you're right. It seems to me that there are those who are out there who are really kind of cheerleading for it. The people who seem to want a recession and the pain that comes with it. Want the massive job losses and the pain that comes with it. And it's amazing to me. And it's one of those things that I sometimes struggle to put my hands around, because you've got people who are hoping, for their benefit, of course, that you lose your job. I had one person tell me, well, the only way prices are going to come down is if we have, deflation, which is bad. I don't know anybody who's thrilled about that idea. But this push, and there's part of me that goes, we're heading towards election time. We're about 6 months out now? Or I guess exactly 6 months out. There's this want right around coming into election time to saddle Biden with, the economy isn't doing that great. And understand, corporate America, they know this. The business roundtable has an enormous amount of power. They can lay people off. They can cause economic distress to have whichever political party in control whenever they want, because most people vote about how their personal economy is doing. And I just had a conversation with somebody who's going, well, have you seen food prices? I go, yeah, this isn't new. And it's not Biden's fault. It's not Biden's fault Trump screwed up the pandemic so badly. It's not Biden's fault that corporate America is gouging our eyes out with shrinkflation and greedflation simultaneously while making major bank. I know they'll stop. And the frustrating part of this is we're still eating each other and they're laughing all the way to the bank. But I had this person go, have you seen the price of groceries? And I'm like, yeah, I have. They're expensive. Well, what are we supposed to do? And I said, well, truth of the matter is we've seen this stuff before. He's going, the price of housing's outrageous. And I go, yeah, rents are crazy. We've had rent strikes in this country. We've had mobilization of working people saying we demand better. We've done this before. And again, I come back to what I said a minute ago. This idea of organizing the workplace is a big part of this, because as prices go up, as inflation goes up, wages should go with it. And I've told the story of my grandparents, a couple of times. Look, they lived through the 70s. This idea that interest rates have never been higher than they are now. Nonsense. Back in the late 70s, they were like 18% to get a mortgage. It was crazy. Now, you were getting good CD rates. As a relative reminded me, if you had money to put into a CD back then, you were getting double digits. But we think about where we are as if we've never been here before. Yeah, food prices are high. Rent's high. How we deal with that is, well, we band together and hold corporate America accountable. The reality is they don't fear consumers, because no matter how high they put the price, it seems right now we're not going anywhere else. We're not going to not buy. We're just going to complain about the price of it while they line their pockets. For me, the answer is very clear. Stop buying stuff. It's too much. Stop buying it. Eventually, price is going to come down. And eventually that sends the message to everyone else. I was reading an article the other day that said, home ownership in this country is becoming a pipe dream. Young people just never going to be able to do it. They threw out some numbers. I think they said almost 3/4 of renters feel that getting a mortgage is difficult, compared to 51% amid zero interest rates in 2021. It's getting worse. And Americans do expect mortgage rates to keep climbing and home prices to keep going up. So the cost of buying is going to continue to go up. In fact, they're thinking in the next 12 months, they're thinking, almost a double increase. And you go, well, how do you fix that? Well, you fix it by adding to the supply. You fix it by getting better wages. There are a bunch of things that we could and should be doing if we had a functional government. And this is where my mind comes back to this place where, we have not had a functional government really in 5 out of 6 years? We've had, you go back to the Trump years. What did they actually do? Well, they cut taxes on the rich, which is going to cost us, what did I say before? $4.6 trillion. And a good number of those tax cuts, the ones that you got, the ones that I got, those are going to expire at the end of next year. If they don't reauthorize it, our taxes are going up. But corporate America's ain't going up. Our rich citizens, that's not going up because we're going to take care of them. So for me, I look at where we are and I just go, if we had a functional government, and I was thinking about this as I was preparing the opening for today, because you think back to what Biden actually ushered through in 2 years, which is really quite remarkable. In each of his first 2 years, pushed 2 giant pieces of legislation through with a very narrow majority. He was able to get the American Rescue Plan through. He was able to get that $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill through. In 22, he got the CHIPS and Science Act and the Inflation Reduction Act done. And that's massive stuff. And it's only because this is a guy who knows how to maneuver through government. Sadly, we haven't had people who've been able to get things done. And I've said it before. I want people who can get things done, who can make lives better. Now, you may not agree with everything in each of these pieces of legislation, and I'm sure I don't either. But the idea that it's moving us in a direction where we are reshoring manufacturing and building for the future, shoring up our supply chains at home, that's enormous. The fact that we're rebuilding our home infrastructure, that's enormous. I mean, $1.2 trillion is a lot of money, but it's nowhere near what we need. And if we had a functional government, we would really be talking about what we need, not just what we can get. And this comes back to, look, this is not new. This is, Reagan forward. This is, end of the Nixon era forward. This is conservative politicians on both sides of the aisle, but mostly on the Republican side, saying government doesn't work. Government's broken. Government's the problem. We need to let corporate America take over everything. How's that worked out for us? I mean, really on the grand scale, we've made some really rich people, but the life of the average citizen, I'm not so sure. And I know I've had people say, things are much better now than they've ever been. Okay, maybe with technology and maybe with the conveniences, but the stress on families, the distribution of income, we've got real problems. But we can solve them, and this is where the wealth class knows what they're doing. They love the Marjorie Taylor Greens. They love the Matt Gaetzes. They love the Jim Jordans and the Scott Perrys. They love all of the destroyers. These are people who know how to tear things apart. These are people who know how to destroy. My grandfather always said, any idiot with a hammer can tear down a house. It takes a skilled craftsman to build it. And Biden has been that skilled craftsman. The fact that he got 4 major pieces of legislation through the way he did, that's remarkable. And I know Sleepy Joe, I know not very all there, whatever the words are, actually doing the job. Now, the infrastructure bill, as I said a minute ago, is $1.2 trillion is a good amount. It's a good start. But according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, we need what, $4.8 trillion? So it's about a quarter of what we need. And look, me personally, fortunately, we probably won't see automated trucks for a while because our infrastructure really isn't up to snuff. And I don't know that people are going to be thrilled with having 80,000-pound vehicles careening down the virtual railroad track, buffering while you're driving next to it. And that comes back to our infrastructure, comes back to our broadband access, comes back to our roads and bridges and all that stuff. But here it is, as I've said, Biden is the guy that's moving us in a direction to deal with those problems. Because I was really thinking about it. We haven't had. Biden's probably the first true insider who knows the mechanisms and the workings of the federal government and has been doing it as long as he has, as any president in my lifetime. Nixon was vice president for 8 years under Eisenhower. You had Ford, who was a member of Congress for a couple of years. And then you had Carter, an outsider, a governor, peanut farmer. Then you had Reagan, the outsider. He was a governor, but he was bringing something new. Tear down government. H.W. Bush, CIA, he was Congress for a couple of years, vice president for a couple of years, but not really in the legislative maneuvering world. Then you had Clinton, the governor. You had W. That was. And then you had Obama was a senator for about 15 minutes. And then Trump, who clearly knew nothing. And to be honest, that was, I think, the country's saving grace, is that he didn't really know anything and he couldn't do all the dangerous things that I think he now gets and that all of the mechanisms around him now get, which is why this election is much more scary. But I want to hear your thoughts. How do we deal with problems in the 21st century if we can't have a functional political system? Do we continue to move towards a fascistic style of government, which the globe seems to be moving towards? The idea of democracy is not assured. And the fact that we're not sure it's going to be here either, it's kind of frightening. I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1972. That was the day that employees at the Farrah Manufacturing Company went out on strike. The company was one of the top producers of men's and boys' pants in the country, and the second largest employer in El Paso, Texas. The majority of workers were Chicano. More than 80% were women. These workers worked long hours for low wages and were required to meet a high quota demand. In the late 1960s, some of the male employees began to discuss their working conditions and what they could do to change things. One employee remembered the early days of organizing sometimes happened after softball games between the teams of workers from the different departments in the plant. We'd sit around after the game and talk about these things and the union. Men working in the cutting room voted to affiliate with the Amalgamated Clothing Workers of America. Workers from the San Antonio plant came to El Paso to support the union effort. These workers were fired. In response, 500 El Paso workers walked off the job. They demanded the right to have a union. Soon, more than 3,000 Farrah employees went out on strike. The strike cause won the support of the Roman Catholic bishop in El Paso, who supported a boycott against Farrah pants. The AFL-CIO called for a boycott. The campaign against Farrah soon spread across the country. Even though the company brought in scab replacement labor, the effort to get a union continued. The fight wore on until March of 1974, when the National Labor Relations Board found in favor of the employees who had been fired. Unionization had come to FARA. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, Kristi Noem has cut short her book tour. Wow, who knew? Who knew the country would be united over, hey, maybe don't shoot your dog in the face? Maybe that's not a great political story. Maybe not. And I think we found what is a bridge too far. But she cites, I think they're saying it's bad weather. It's bad weather. Yeah. It's bad weather. That's why she canceled the tour. Inclement weather. It's just bad weather. It's not that the tour was going horribly. When you're on Fox Business and you got Stuart Varney, basically drilling you into the ground, you should probably do what she did. Right move, Kristi. You might actually save something of your career. I want to get to a couple of emails. Yesterday we talked about child labor. And got a bunch of responses from folks, but these are a couple of my favorite. Frank wrote me, he said, over 100 years ago, my uncle, by marriage, was a breaker boy. His job was to separate the coal from the shale. Both of these would come down the conveyor belt. The mines used boys because they had small fingers. That would be the right size to break the coal away from the shale. He says, oftentimes the boys would get their fingers or hands caught in the conveyor belt. There were many boys who lost their fingers and hands. Fortunately for him, this did not happen to him. However, he went on to become a coal miner as an adult. And you know where this is going. He developed a black lung. He received a pension from the federal government and was not able to work anymore in the coal mines. Not surprising. Look, I mean, these kids started off as breaker boys, and they started off as the kids who open and close the doors. And I've told that story before. The kid whose job was to close the fire damp doors and open them as the coal cars were coming through. They had a 50% fatality rate. You're talking 8-year-old kids. It's just a horrible story. Also, Shirley sent me an article, said, my great-great-grandmother at 10 years old worked in the looms in Massachusetts and was part of the Lawrence strike, the Bread and Roses strike of 1912. She said they were immigrants from Lithuania, and according to my mother, she died of brown lung. That's because that's from the cotton and the looms, and those were black lungs from the coal. Brown lung is from the dust in the air from the spools of thread and the fabric. She goes on to say in her mid-20s, I think it was horrible. It was a horrible place where half of the children died before they were 6, and something like 40% of the girls and women who worked in the mill died before they were 25. Life expectancy was less than 40 years old. She says, sadly, it seems there are those who want children back in the workplace instead of schools. And this is, these two, and Shirley and Frank, thank you so much for sending this. These are two stories that you go, we cannot forget. Because there are those who want your kids back in this situation. They want this kind of desperation. I was talking to a millennial friend the other day, and he goes, when I got out of high school, I didn't realize that I was going to be jumping from gig job to gig job. I wanted what my parents had. I wanted to get a good job with decent benefits, some stability, make a decent wage, buy a house, have a family. Didn't work out that way because the job market, the corporate class decided that, we should be moving backwards. And to this era is where they want to take us. Understand, this Supreme Court, and you're going to hear about it in the next couple of years, this Supreme Court wants to undo the whole Lochner era. They want to undo the end of the Lochner era and bring back the liberty of contract or freedom of contract. They want that whole get government out of working conditions so that employers can have all the power. And what's really frustrating is I think we're going to let it happen. I think we're going to remain at each other's throats, and it's going to happen. The question is, how do we stop it? I think I've given you part of it, but I want to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any portion of the program, make sure you grab the podcast. Wherever you get your favorite podcast, you'll find ours. Also, freespeech.org for the video. Go there as well. And as always, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.